We have some big news from our guest that we'll get to a little bit later because he's not just a podcaster, the host of the Domonique Foxworth show, out 3 days a week, but he's also a writer. The Aaron Hernandez story on FX Hulu is going to be out this upcoming week. Was able to get a couple episodes down ahead of time and some cool backstory to that as well. So congrats on that, Dominique. And let's start with some NFL, though. All right. Okay, I talked about this too high safety rate thing that we saw an explosion in week one from where it's been in previous years. I'll admit, Sunday on the couch, watching the TV angle, you're thinking, like, is there just nothing there for so many of these quarterbacks? Like, what is this actually? Am I having fun? is this fun to watch? Is there a running emphasis zag coming? So somebody who played the position, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it is fun to watch, but not from the TV angle. And so, I think you can see defenses have evolved personnel-wise. Like, the bodies on defense are different. And I think this happens in football often where there's some rule changes or some offensive evolution, and it takes some time for the play style and the body types and the defense to catch up. And then eventually the offense generates some sort of evolution that we need to react to. Like, that's a healthy ecosystem in football. And the fun stuff that I've been catching on with is the simulated pressures. And one of the reasons why it's been hard for guys to have success is they'll send what looks like a blitz, but they actually end up having enough guys in coverage to play a traditional zone coverage. But the quarterback is reacting as if it's a blitz because he's read it as a blitz. And sometimes they'll slide the line the wrong way. So you get actually the impact of a blitz with a free runner because the line slid the wrong way with the coverage in the back end still being high end. And what you end up as a result, you get a quarterback patting the ball, rolling to the right and throwing an incomplete pass. But if you get the full picture, you watch the way the coverage rolls. And so oftentimes, and Tom Brady talks about how the quarterbacks don't have a command at the line of scrimmage the way that he used to, but the defenses are different now. So if you're a quarterback, they'll always teach you, look at the safeties first. They'll tell you. So what that means is if there's a nickel blitz coming, eventually one of the safeties is going to be over top of the nickel. And so the quarterback's like, all right. And so when you see nickels showing the blitz and faking the blitz, while you'll see Cam Newton or some quarterback say, you ain't coming. Because he can't come because there's nobody over there to replace him. So one thing that I saw Spags do that was really impressive is they did the blitz with no one over top, but then they just rolled the entire coverage. And so it's impossible to get a true pre-snap read. And then it's incumbent on the quarterback to react. So doing that and then doubling Jamar Chase in certain situations, and then you're going to get a quarterback back there a little antsy and uncomfortable. And imagine doing that to someone who's not Joe Burrow. And we end up with a lot of situations where the product on TV is a little stagnant, but what's happening on the back end is freaky.
Yeah, we're just not seeing it because I've had a lot of, look, it's still the NFL and we all love it. But in the first 2 weeks, I've trained myself to get better and better about just not watching the ball. I mean, you just shouldn't watch it because if it's worth watching, you're going to get the replay anyway, and then you can watch the ball. But I don't think I've ever been better with defensive lines and tackles and that kind of stuff and pulling offensive linemen. And I'm just awful at the rest of it now because it's not on the screen. Yeah. It's all to your left or right, but it's past the border of the size of your television.
I put up the next gen on my laptop, which it does make it a little bit less fun where I'm looking at the dots, I'm rewinding and looking at the dots. It's not a great communal experience, but then I'm like, oh, that was actually really cool, even though it looked kind of boring and dumb.
Yeah. All right. So you said something on Burrow, like the safety blitz on the third down, that was just huge. There are quarterbacks, especially the younger ones, that might be the hardest thing for all the things they have to do to figure out how to make it in this league. You have to have a sense of where the pressure's coming, or you at least have to go, all right, on this play, internal clock, I've got to get it out of certain. Against Spags, you probably should know. Yeah, probably know. But they did a really good job. I thought Romo was actually really good talking about, look, if you're getting chased on one side, even with the McDuffie stats, do you just have another receiver follow behind what's likely a double team because you're not going to leave Chase one-on-one in that kind of situation. You're likely getting man. So, just have somebody underneath it. but maybe that was just the genius of timing it at the right time and bringing it from an angle and bringing it from somebody that doesn't see it. Did you have an issue with Burrow not being better prepared on that play?
No, because they switched plays up, and Spags is good about that, where he'll save something. And I'm not sure if this was true in this situation, but he's always been someone who saved something for the second half. So, like, maybe Burrow should
Totally.
anticipate that there's something saved for the second half. But like, if they show you the same look all game on every third down or every other third down, then you get to a key third down. I'm going to anticipate that they're going to bring the one defense that they really love, not the one that they really love that they just been saving for this spot.
Yeah. Okay. So you also said something interesting before we got on here. Are you not like I left that game going, I feel good about both teams, despite the flaws, specifically the Chiefs at left tackle. But like, do you like another team in the AFC better than those two teams?
You see, that's the tough part.
It sounds like you don't like them, but you don't have another option.
I think I'm getting better about shaking off my preseason expectations. And I picked the Bills to win their division, but I didn't think the Bills were a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But I'm starting to feel differently about that. And I picked the Bills because what they did at the end of last year. And I thought Sean McDermott is incredibly impressive in the way that they just manufactured defense without the guys that we expected. And if Von Miller is going to continue to produce the way that he produced, and they can still manufacture this coverage without Milano and without Poyer, with young corners, like that, to me is incredibly impressive. And we don't have to discuss the other side of the ball. Josh Allen is a one-man offense. And so if the question for me for them was, are they going to be able to generate some sort of production from the receiver spot, which it seems like Coleman and Shakir are going to be good enough and getting better. But the big question was, how good is their defense going to be with some new pieces? And it seems like that's been pretty good and they're only going to get better. So I'm not sure, though. That's the thing. It's like coming out of that Chiefs-Bengals game, I wanted to feel like someone had this thing completely under control. But the Chiefs' offense is not what we expect, and their defense is still kind of shaping up and trying to figure out how to replace Jerry Sneed.
Yeah, right. I mean, losing somebody like Sneed, but they've done such a good job on that side of the football. They've drafted so well. And, after week one, my whole thought, look, it wasn't like I was the only one saying it. It was like, if you didn't get the Chiefs last year, you're doing it wrong. Even though Mahomes,
right,
like, it was the worst he's ever played last year. And if you actually want to like bake the stats together for 2 weeks, you're like, they're not that great. The first pick was bad. The second pick was an incredible play. Where are you on defensive backs being a little early in that gray area where you're allowed to get away with it, but that felt a little too early to get away with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I like this.
So no flag?
The difference to me in that situation is he didn't come there. He didn't attack the player. He's attacking the ball, and he got there a little early. It's kind of like one of those spirit of the play. Like, he made the play. He was going to make the play. And I get that he physically got there early, but his eyes are in the backfield. And that Cam Taylor-Britt talking shit before the game and then getting that one-hand interception, that was incredible. I love that. I got so excited at home alone watching that incredible play. I loved it. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, Sumatia, the tackle. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but I just finished watching that game too, and all this stuff is in my head. Like, the tackle situation is a problem for them. The cornerback situation may shape up. And the reason why everyone said last year was the year to get them was because we thought that they addressed their weapons issue. And I'm not sure they have. Xavier Worthy had a blown coverage for a touchdown and a jet sweep for a touchdown. It wasn't like he showed that he was a great player. Hollywood Brown is not healthy. And Rice is good. So, like, I'm not saying that they're done, but they haven't proven to me that they've answered those questions yet.
I'm glad you said that about Xavier Worthy, because as somebody that spends a lot of time on Saturdays watching all these guys, and then it's just the disconnect. I mean, there's some people that only watch one. I think there's very few that put the time in to watch both all the time. And NFL fans are watching the season opener going, I can't believe they got them. Well, like, you want to know what? Like, there's a bunch of other guys that were way better than him that all got drafted ahead of him. Okay. So I know he was really fast. I know what the combine numbers were. I remember John Ross also lit it up too, speaking of Cincinnati. So Worthy was a nice receiver at Texas, but I never watched him thinking he was even close to being in the same class as those other guys. Now you want to talk about Mahomes, the creativity and the Andy Reid offense, and there's going to be all these other guys who's going to get these different looks. I would be really surprised if he turns into somebody that's like, 100 catches, 8 touchdowns every single year, the way people felt like they just were landing Justin Jefferson, and it's just not really who he was on Saturdays.
One thing
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, and one thing that's true, that's been true about this Mahomes offense is every time they get anybody, we're like, watch what they do there. And no one's really done it. Like we said that about
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like I was like, he was really, but it was a million NFL guys around him on that 19 team.
Right.
And he was good, with cuts inside of the tackles and that kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden, maybe fantasy messes it up. Because then I remember just everybody being like, oh my God, like you got to take him. And
it's not just him. It's like Kadarius Toney. People are like, oh, it's like another Tyreek Hill. Sammy Watkins. People are all excited about it. And like everyone's like, because Mahomes is so good, we assume that people are going to fit in an offense and be the best version of themselves in that offense. And it hasn't been true yet. So assuming just because Xavier Worthy is incredibly fast, and he's a good receiver too, like he runs good routes.
He's good, but it's just, he's not any of those guys that were drafted at the top of the first round.
Exactly.
Like, at least that's just not what I saw when I watched all those guys play. Okay, Kyler. All right, full Kyler timeline. No idea as the number 1 pick. And then had stretches early in his career where I thought every week he was the only reason they had a chance to win games. Then totally off him, whether it was vibes, gossip, the fact that I think he's going to get hurt every time he's tackled. And then I was like, man, that's a massive contract with a lot of guaranteed money the rest of the way. Okay, so I was off of him again, but hope for his talent. Like there's some guys that I watch, I go, I don't see it ever. Kyler, I've already seen it when it looked good. And he's great in the beginning of the Bills game. Then it got a little tougher for him. But yesterday was a reassessment of who he could be, at least, because it was filthy.
He was the best quarterback in football yesterday. And I don't even think it was even close. And I guess his biggest comp is like Derek Carr. But he was amazing. And he did it from the pocket. He did it with his athleticism. He did it with creativity. His accuracy was on point. And Kyler has it all. It's funny because it felt like one of the things that we as a football analysis community have flip-flopped on was like, short quarterbacks are okay. Short quarterbacks don't work at all. You can't, and we just
I'm back on that. Yeah.
We just have these flip-flops all the time. But Kyler Murray is showing that maybe we should not categorize them as all the same thing. If you're a ridiculous talent like Kyler Murray, then maybe. If you're not a ridiculous talent like, somebody else, then you probably need to stick with this 6'5", 230-pound guy who can launch that thing.
Yeah, I was watching Tim Couch be inducted in the Kentucky Hall of Fame at halftime of the Georgia game. My God, is that dude a beast, just put together. I mean, standing there, because you always worry about the 25-year later guy reunion. You're like, we're the same age? Like, what happened to you?
Tim focuses energy on getting ripped.
Dude, he was enormous. But again, back to the original thought. Another small quarterback, Tua. I said Friday after he was knocked out of the Thursday game, I get it. It's kind of nice that we can be concerning. Sometimes I wonder if people are being nice because the approval rating of being nice is better than the approval rating of not being nice. But I just don't love when everybody starts telling somebody else that they should retire. Where is the story for you? Somebody with the Players Association where you had a different experience with this, beyond just playing. Right. You're shaking your head a little bit, so take it wherever you want.
No, I mean the Players Association perspective is interesting because there's the responsibility to protect the players, but also the responsibility or the drive to give them what they want. And so I think fundamentally I agree with you in that we shouldn't really be calling for Tua to retire or anything like that. And it doesn't matter what we say. He's going to make the decision at some point. But the big question for me is who's going to call him? Because I would assume that he's going to start getting some calls from the league office too at some point. Because the worst possible outcome is for something dramatic to happen on the field again. And we've had enough dramatic things on the field. But he's going to make his decision with the information that he gets. I don't care so much. Honestly, I felt I texted a couple of people in media because I was getting tired of all the yeah. I don't know. I'm certainly guilty of grandstanding from time to time, so I don't want to be super judgmental. But it felt like a lot of grandstanding around this particular event, and I was getting sick of it. Like, man, it stinks, and we all care, and we want them to be healthy, but we have to be honest with ourselves. We love this game too much because we have plenty of evidence of how dangerous it is for people.